Good evening, friends, and welcome back to another peaceful journey through history's quieter corridors. Tonight, we'll drift into the fascinating world of medieval medicine, where healing took forms that might seem strange to our modern eyes, yet held deep meaning for those who practiced them. I'm curious, where are you joining me tonight? What time is it in your corner of the world? Take a moment now to dim your lights. Let that gentle glow settle around you like a warm embrace. Pull your blanket up to your chin. Feel the soft weight of it against your shoulders. Perhaps there's a distant hum of the world outside, cars passing, the gentle whisper of wind through trees. Or maybe just the comforting silence of night wrapping around your space. Tonight, we'll explore 6 curious chapters from the Medieval Healer's Handbook, wandering through cobblestone streets where barber-surgeons hung their striped poles, and monastery gardens where monks cultivated both prayers and peculiar remedies. If this calm journey helps you unwind and carries you gently toward rest, tap like and subscribe only if it feels right. Only if these whispered stories bring you peace. Let your breathing slow as we step back nearly 1,000 years to a time when medicine was equal parts science, superstition, and sincere hope. Close your eyes and let me guide you through these strange and wonderful treatments, each one a thread in the rich tapestry of human healing. Let me tell you about a practice that would have been as common in medieval times as taking an aspirin is today. Picture, if you will, a cool morning in 1347, somewhere in the rolling hills of southern France. The mist clings to the valley like a soft, gray blanket, and in a modest stone cottage, a barber-surgeon named Guillaume is preparing for his most frequent procedure, bloodletting. The room is small but clean, with morning light filtering through a single window made of thick, wavy glass that distorts the view of the garden beyond. There's a gentle crackling from the fireplace, where embers glow like tiny rubies, casting dancing shadows on the whitewashed walls. The air smells of dried herbs hanging in bundles from the rafters, lavender, rosemary, and sage, their earthy fragrance mixing with the faint scent of beeswax from the candles that Guillaume keeps burning even in daylight. Can you imagine walking into such a place when feeling unwell? The medieval mind believed that illness came from an imbalance of the 4 bodily humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Too much blood, they reasoned, would make you feverish and agitated. The solution seemed logical enough: remove some blood, restore the balance, heal the patient. Guillaume moves with practiced ease, his hands steady as he selects his tools from a wooden case lined with soft wool cloth. The instruments gleam dully in the firelight: brass cups for cupping, sharp little knives called fleams, and his prized possession, a set of pewter bleeding bowls decorated with intricate engravings of vines and flowers. Each tool has been cleaned with wine and blessed with a whispered prayer. For Guillaume, like many medieval healers, sees his work as both craft and calling. His patient today is Marie, a young woman from the nearby village who has been suffering from what we might recognize as a fever, but which Guillaume diagnoses as an excess of hot, wet blood. She lies on a simple wooden table covered with clean linen sheets that smell faintly of the lavender oil used to wash them. Her face is flushed, and she breathes with the shallow rhythm of illness, each exhale visible in the cool morning air. The process Guillaume is about to perform has been refined over centuries. He begins by examining Marie's pulse at her wrist, pressing gently with 2 fingers while counting under his breath. Medieval physicians believed they could detect up to 27 different types of pulse, each revealing secrets about the body's internal state. Marie's pulse, Guillaume determines, is too rapid and too strong, clear evidence of blood that needs releasing. He chooses to use the cupping method today, a technique that feels almost magical in its simplicity. Guillaume takes a small glass cup about the size of a modern teacup and holds it over a candle flame until the air inside becomes hot. Then, with a swift, practiced motion, he places the cup against Marie's back, just below her shoulder blade. As the air inside cools, it creates a gentle suction that draws her skin up into the cup like a small, pink hill. The sensation, Marie tells him, is strange but not unpleasant, like being gently pulled by invisible hands. Guillaume places several more cups along her back and arms, creating a pattern that looks almost decorative. The suction draws blood to the surface, creating circular red marks that will fade in a few days. But Guillaume isn't finished yet. For Marie's condition, he believes she needs what medieval doctors called wet cupping, actually drawing blood from the body. Using a small, sharp blade, no bigger than your thumbnail, he makes tiny cuts in the skin under each cup. The cuts are shallow, barely deeper than a paper cut, but they're enough to allow blood to flow into the cups. The process is slow and strangely hypnotic. Drop by drop, the dark red blood collects in the glass cups, making tiny musical sounds as each droplet joins the growing pool. Guillaume watches carefully, counting the drops and judging the color and consistency of the blood. Bright red blood is good. It means the hot humors are being released. Dark, thick blood might indicate deeper problems, requiring more extensive treatment. As the morning progresses, other patients arrive at Guillaume's cottage. There's old Henry, who comes monthly for bloodletting to prevent the buildup of humors that might cause joint pain. Henry settles into a comfortable chair by the fire and rolls up his sleeve with the casual air of someone accustomed to the procedure. Guillaume uses leeches for Henry fat, dark creatures kept in a special jar filled with pond water and moss. The leeches, Guillaume explains to his patients, are nature's own bleeding tools. He places 3 of them on Henry's forearm, and they attach with tiny bites that feel like brief pinpricks. Then they begin their work, each leech swelling gradually as it draws blood. The sight might seem disturbing to modern eyes, but there's something almost peaceful about watching these creatures do what nature designed them to do. Henry dozes in his chair, the firelight playing across his weathered face. While the leeches work with methodical patience, medieval physicians had elaborate charts showing where to apply leeches or make cuts for different ailments. Headaches required bleeding from the temples, digestive troubles from the stomach area, and emotional disturbances from near the heart. The human body was seen as a landscape with specific territories, each governed by different humoral influences that could be accessed and adjusted through careful bloodletting. The tools of the trade were surprisingly sophisticated. Fleams came in different sizes for different purposes, small ones for delicate work on children or the elderly, larger ones for robust adults who could tolerate more aggressive treatment. Some wealthy physicians owned elaborate mechanical devices called which could make multiple small cuts simultaneously. creating a neat grid pattern on the skin. There was even a social aspect to bloodletting that might surprise you. In some medieval communities, particularly during spring and fall seasons, when humoral imbalances were thought most likely, groups of people would gather for communal bloodletting sessions. These events had an almost festive atmosphere, with neighbors catching up on gossip while their blood dripped into decorative bowls, and children playing quiet games in the corners while their parents underwent treatment. The amount of blood removed varied dramatically depending on the patient's age, condition, and social status. A robust young man might lose a pint or more during a single session, while a frail elderly woman might have only a few spoonfuls drawn. Medieval physicians developed elaborate calculations based on astrological charts, seasonal changes, and the phases of the moon to determine the optimal amount of blood to remove. Some practitioners specialized in specific types of bloodletting. Monastery infirmaries often favored cupping, seeing the process as a form of spiritual purification as well as physical healing. Military surgeons, dealing with wounded soldiers, developed quick and efficient methods using spring-loaded lancets that could draw blood rapidly from multiple patients. The economics of bloodletting were fascinating too. Barber-surgeons like Gigam charged different rates for different procedures. Simple cupping cost less than wet cupping, which cost less than the delicate work of applying leeches to sensitive areas like the temples or behind the ears. Wealthy patients sometimes owned their own personal sets of cupping glasses made from fine Venetian glass and decorated with gold leaf. As evening approaches in Ghulam's cottage, the day's work winds down. The last patient, a merchant's wife, suffering from what she describes as melancholy, sits peacefully as Gizem applies warm cups to her shoulders. The treatment, she says, always makes her feel lighter, as if some invisible burden has been lifted away with the blood. Gidam cleans his tools with wine and hot water, wrapping each piece carefully in soft cloth before returning it to its wooden case. The used blood, considered sacred in its way, is buried in his garden where it will nourish the herbs he grows for other treatments. Nothing is wasted in this medieval world, where every resource has value and purpose. The room grows quiet as the fire burns low, casting long shadows that dance gently across the stone walls. Outside, the evening mist begins to rise from the valley, and the first stars appear in the darkening sky. Guillaume's cottage, with its lingering scents of herbs and beeswax, settles into the peaceful silence that follows a day of healing work. And as we leave this warm, candle-lit room where blood flowed like a gentle stream, carrying away illness and imbalance, let your own body relax into the rhythm of rest, feeling the peaceful circulation of life through your veins, carrying you toward the healing realm of sleep. Now, let your mind wander to a monastery high in the Alps, where the year is 1284 and Brother Benedict has just received word that a most unusual patient requires his specialized skills. The monastery of Sankt Blasian sits like a crown of gray stone against the mountainside, its walls thick enough to keep out the bitter winter winds that howl through the passes. Tonight, snowflakes drift past the narrow windows like tiny white feathers, and inside the infirmary, oil lamps cast pools of golden light across the stone floors. Brother Benedict is no ordinary monk. Along with his prayers and copying of manuscripts, He practices a medical art that would make even the bravest modern surgeon pause. Trepanation, the careful drilling of holes in the human skull. It sounds terrifying, doesn't it? Yet, in the medieval world, this procedure was performed with the same reverence and care that Guillaume showed with his bloodletting cups. The infirmary is a marvel of medieval engineering. With thick walls that muffle sound and a sophisticated system of flues that keep the room warm without filling it with smoke. Shelves line the walls, holding an impressive collection of medical texts, some copied by the monks themselves, others acquired through trade with distant monasteries. The air carries the scent of parchment and ink, mixed with the earthier aromas of medicinal herbs that hang in neat bundles from the rafters. Tonight's patient is a young knight named Sir Edmund, who was struck in the head during a tournament 3 days ago. He arrived at the monastery conscious, but suffering from what we would now recognize as symptoms of a severe concussion, blinding headaches, moments of confusion, and an alarming tendency to fall into deep sleeps from which he's difficult to wake. In Edmund's time, these symptoms are understood as evidence that evil humors have become trapped inside his skull, pressing against his brain like water trapped behind a dam. Brother Benedict examines Edmund by candlelight, his trained fingers gently probing the knight's scalp for signs of injury. He finds what he's looking for, a soft spot where the skull has been damaged, though the skin remains unbroken. Medieval physicians called such injuries closed wounds of the head, and they believed that without intervention, the trapped humors would eventually cause madness or death. The decision to perform trepanation is never made lightly. Brother Benedict consults his medical texts, particularly a worn copy of instructions left by previous generations of monastery healers. He studies astrological charts to ensure the timing is favorable. The moon is waxing, which is considered beneficial for procedures that release harmful substances from the body. He also prays for guidance, understanding that he is about to undertake a procedure that walks the fine line between healing and harm. The tools for trepanation are surprisingly refined. Brother Benedict's kit, housed in a wooden box lined with silk, contains several different types of Trepan's circular cutting instruments that work like primitive drills. Some are small and delicate, designed for minor procedures, while others are larger and more robust for serious cases, like Edmund's. Each trepan has been carefully maintained, its cutting edge sharp enough to slice cleanly through bone, without causing unnecessary trauma. The centerpiece of the collection is a beautiful instrument called a crown trepana, circular blade attached to a handle that can be twisted like a corkscrew. The metal has been polished to a mirror shine, and the handle is wrapped in soft leather for a secure grip. Accompanying this are smaller tools, sharp knives for making the initial incision through the skin, small spoons for removing bone fragments, and delicate probes for examining the brain tissue beneath. Edmund lies on a specially constructed table that can be adjusted to different angles, allowing Brother Benedict to work with precision, regardless of where on the skull the hole needs to be made. The knight has been given a mixture of wine and herbs, including mandrake and opium, that dulls the pain without completely removing consciousness. Medieval surgeons believed it was important for patients to remain somewhat aware during the procedure, both to ensure they were still alive and to allow them to report any changes in their symptoms. The process begins with Brother Benedict carefully shaving the hair from the area of Edmund's head where he plans to work. The motion is slow and meditative, almost ritualistic, as each strand of hair falls away to reveal the pale skin beneath. He then makes the sign of the cross over the exposed area and begins to clean it with wine, the sharp scent cutting through the warmer aromas of the infirmary. Using a small, extremely sharp knife, Brother Benedict makes the first incision. The cut is precise and controlled, following the natural curves of the skull. Medieval surgeons had developed sophisticated techniques for this initial step, understanding that clean cuts heal better than ragged ones. As the blade parts the skin, a thin line of blood appears, dark red in the limplight dot. Now comes the most delicate part of the operation. Brother Benedict selects his crown trepan and positions it carefully over the area where Edmund's skull is damaged. The instrument must be placed with absolute precision. Too far in one direction, and he might damage healthy brain tissue. Too far in another, and he might miss the trapped humors entirely. The actual drilling is a slow, methodical process that requires enormous patience and skill. Brother Benedict turns the trepan with steady, even pressure, feeling through his hands as the circular blade bites into the bone. The sound is distinctive, a soft grinding that fills the quiet infirmary like the whisper of stone against stone. With each turn, tiny shavings of bone are carved away, gradually deepening the circular groove. Medieval physicians understood that the skull has different layers, and each requires a different approach. The outer layer is hard and dense, like the shell of a nut, while the inner layer is more delicate and requires gentler handling. Brother Benedict has performed this procedure dozens of times, and his experienced hands can feel the subtle changes in resistance that tell him exactly how deep he's penetrated. As the trepan works deeper, Edmund reports a strange sensation, not pain exactly, but a feeling of pressure being released, like air escaping from a tight container. This is exactly what Brother Benedict hopes to hear. Medieval medical theory held that successful trepanation should provide immediate relief as the trapped humors find their escape route. The breakthrough moment comes suddenly. After nearly an hour of careful drilling, the trepan breaks through the inner layer of skull with a barely audible crack. Brother Benedict immediately stops drilling and examines his work with a magnifying lens, a remarkable piece of technology that the monastery acquired from traders who had traveled to the lands of the Arabs through the hole, which is about the size of a gold coin. Brother Benedict can see the brain itself, a grayish-pink surface that pulses gently with Edmund's heartbeat. To medieval eyes, this is both miraculous and terrifying, a glimpse into the very seat of human consciousness. Some physicians believe they could actually see the evil humors escaping as dark vapors, though modern understanding suggests this was likely just the normal moisture of the brain tissue meeting the cooler air. The immediate aftermath of trepanation often brought dramatic results. Edmund reports that his headache is already beginning to fade, and the confusion that had plagued him for days starts to clear. Medieval physicians saw this as proof that their understanding of trapped humors was correct, though we now know that the relief probably came from reducing pressure on the brain tissue. Brother Benedict's work isn't finished yet. He carefully examines the edges of the hole he's created, using small instruments to smooth any rough spots that might cause problems as the wound heals. He also removes several small fragments of bone that were loosened during the drilling process, working with the delicate precision of a jeweler. The monastery's records, kept in beautiful, illuminated manuscripts, document hundreds of trepanation procedures performed over the centuries. Some were done for head injuries, like Edmund's, but others were performed for conditions we would find surprising: severe headaches, epilepsy, mental illness, and even what medieval physicians called excessive melancholy. The success rate, according to these records, was remarkably high, though we must remember that only the most dramatic cases would have been considered worthy of such an extreme procedure. The tools and techniques varied significantly across different regions and time periods. English monastery physicians favored crown trepans like Brother Benedict's, while their counterparts in France and Italy often preferred pyramid-shaped drills that created smaller holes. Some practitioners in Spain, influenced by Arabic medical texts, used specialized saws that could remove larger sections of skull when necessary. Recovery from trepanation was a lengthy process that required careful monitoring. Edmund will remain in the monastery infirmary for several weeks while his wound heals. Brother Benedict will change his dressings daily, watching for signs of infection or other complications. The hole in Edmund's skull will eventually be covered by a thin membrane of scar tissue, but it will remain visible for the rest of his life, a permanent reminder of his brush with death and subsequent healing. Patients who underwent trepanation reported long-term changes in their personalities or abilities. Medieval physicians interpreted these changes as evidence that the procedure had successfully rebalanced the humors that governed mental function. A few rare individuals claimed to have gained prophetic abilities or enhanced spiritual insight, leading some monasteries to view trepanation as a potential path to religious enlightenment. The social implications of trepanation were complex. The procedure was expensive and dangerous enough that it was typically reserved for wealthy patients or those with powerful patrons. Poor peasants with head injuries usually had to make do with external treatments like herbal poultices and bloodletting. However, the distinctive scars left by trepanation often gave survivors a certain status in their communities, visible proof that they had survived an encounter with death itself. As midnight approaches in the monastery infirmary, Brother Benedict completes the final steps of Edmund's treatment. He applies a dressing made from clean linen soaked in wine and honey, then wraps the knight's head in soft bandages that will hold the dressing in place. Edmund sleeps peacefully, now, his breathing deep and regular, the lines of pain gone from his face. Outside, the alpine wind continues to howl through the mountain passes, but inside the thick stone walls, all is peaceful. The oil lamps burn with steady flames, casting gentle shadows that dance across the shelves of medical texts and surgical instruments. Brother Benedict kneels beside Edmund's bed for a moment of prayer, giving thanks for the successful completion of another delicate procedure. And as we leave this mountain monastery, where healing and faith walked hand in hand, where brave monks drilled holes in skulls with the same reverence they brought to their prayers, let your own mind find peace in the knowledge that throughout history, humans have always sought to heal and be healed. Their dedication a gentle lullaby that carries us toward rest. Let's step away from the mountain monastery and find ourselves in the bustling market town of Canterbury, where the cobblestone streets still echo with the footsteps of pilgrims seeking healing at the shrine of Thomas Becket. It's a crisp morning in October 1352, and the air carries the mingled scents of wood smoke, baking bread, and the earthy aroma of fallen leaves. In a narrow house tucked between a baker's shop and a weaver's workshop, Master Roger de Cantilupe practices one of medieval medicine's most refined diagnostic art, seroscopy, the examination of urine. Roger's consulting room is a marvel of medieval scientific precision, though it might look more like an alchemist's laboratory to modern eyes. The walls are lined with shelves holding dozens of glass flasks called Matulas, each one shaped like a delicate bulb with a long, narrow neck. These vessels, clear as crystal and thin as eggshells, are designed specifically for collecting and examining urine samples. When sunlight streams through the room's large windows, the Matulas catch and scatter the light into tiny rainbows, creating an almost magical atmosphere. On this particular morning, Roger is expecting his most challenging case, yet Lady Margaret de Clare, who has traveled from her manor house 3 days' ride away. Her servants arrived yesterday with detailed descriptions of her symptoms and, most importantly, a carefully preserved sample of her urine, transported in a specially cushioned box to prevent any contamination that might affect the diagnosis. The art of uroscopy was considered the highest form of medieval diagnostic medicine, requiring years of study and an almost supernatural ability to read the subtle signs that urine could reveal about the body's inner workings. Roger trained for 7 years under Master William of Salerno, learning to distinguish between 20 different colors of urine, each indicating a different type of humoral imbalance. He can identify textures ranging from thin and watery to thick and syrupy, and he's developed an almost legendary ability to detect diseases by scent alone. Roger's diagnostic process begins long before he actually examines the urine sample. He first interviews Lady Margaret's servants, asking detailed questions about her diet, sleep patterns, emotional state, and the circumstances under which the sample was collected. Medieval physicians understood that urine could be affected by everything from the phase of the moon to the patient's state of mind. When the sample was produced, the servants report that Lady Margaret has been suffering from what she describes as a burning sensation in her stomach, particularly after meals. She's also been experiencing disturbing dreams and moments of unexplained melancholy. Her appetite has decreased, and she's complained of feeling constantly tired despite getting adequate sleep. To Roger's trained ear, these symptoms suggest an imbalance of hot and dry humors, but the urine examination will provide the definitive diagnosis. Roger carefully removes Lady Margaret's sample from its protective case. The Matula containing her urine is wrapped in soft wool and sealed with wax to prevent any contamination during transport. As he unwraps it, Roger notes that the servants have followed his instructions perfectly. The sample was collected first thing in the morning, when the urine is most concentrated and therefore most revealing of the body's true condition. The first step in uroscopy is visual examination, and Roger holds the Matula up to the window where the morning light can pass through it. Lady Margaret's urine is a pale golden color with a slight cloudiness that swirls like tiny clouds in a miniature sky. The color tells Roger that her liver is functioning properly. Dark urine would indicate liver problems, while completely clear urine might suggest kidney weakness, but color is just the beginning. Roger examines the urine's consistency, gently swirling the Matula to observe how the liquid moves. Healthy urine should flow smoothly, like good wine, while diseased urine might be thick and sluggish, or thin and watery. Lady Margaret's sample moves with normal fluidity, though Roger notes a slight oiliness that might indicate digestive problems. Medieval physicians had developed an elaborate classification system for urine examination, dividing the Matula into imaginary regions that corresponded to different parts of the body. The foam at the top represented the head and brain. The upper portion of liquid corresponded to the chest and lungs. The middle section indicated the stomach and digestive organs. And the sediment at the bottom revealed the condition of the kidneys and reproductive system. Roger observes that Lady Margaret's urine has developed a thin layer of foam at the top, not enough to indicate serious problems with her mental faculties, but sufficient to suggest some disturbance in her nervous humors. This correlates perfectly with the reports of disturbing dreams and melancholy, confirming Roger's preliminary assessment. The middle portion of the urine, which medieval theory associated with digestive function, shows several interesting characteristics. There are tiny particles floating in the liquid, not large enough to indicate serious disease, but sufficient to suggest that Lady Margaret's stomach is not properly processing her food. The slight oiliness Roger noted earlier supports this diagnosis, indicating that fats and oils are not being adequately absorbed during digestion. At the bottom of the Roger discovers what he's been looking for: a small amount of reddish sediment that has settled overnight. This sediment, called hypostasis in medieval medical terminology, provides crucial information about the patient's internal condition. The color and consistency of the sediment can reveal everything, from kidney stones to infections to imbalances in the reproductive humors. Lady Margaret's sediment, brick red in color and has a grainy texture that reminds Roger of fine sand. This particular combination indicates an excess of hot, dry humors centered in the digestive system, exactly what he suspected based on her reported symptoms. The burning sensation in her stomach, the decreased appetite, and the digestive difficulties all make perfect sense when viewed through the lens of humoral theory. But Roger's examination isn't complete yet. Medieval uroscopy also involved testing the urine's taste and smell, though this required considerable skill and experience to perform safely. Roger first brings the Matula close to his nose, inhaling carefully. Lady Margaret's urine has a slightly sweet scent with undertones that remind him of overripe fruit, another indicator of digestive imbalance and possible excess of sanguine humors. The taste test is performed with extreme caution. Roger dips a small silver spoon into the urine and touches just the tip to his tongue. The metallic taste of the spoon mingles with the subtle flavors of the urine sample. Lady Margaret's urine has a faintly bitter taste with sweet overtones, a combination that confirms Roger's diagnosis of hot, dry humoral imbalance, affecting primarily the digestive system. Roger's consulting room contains an impressive library of uroscopy texts, including beautifully illuminated manuscripts that show detailed illustrations of different types of urine samples. One of his most prized possessions is a copy of the De Urinis by Theophilus, which contains color illustrations of 20 different urine types painted with such precision that they still serve as diagnostic guides 3 centuries after the book was created. Medieval physicians also used specialized equipment to enhance their uroscopy examinations. Roger owns a set of magnifying lenses that allow him to examine sediment in greater detail, and he has a collection of measuring devices for determining the exact proportions of different elements in urine samples. Some of the most advanced practitioners even used primitive chemical tests, adding various substances to urine samples to observe color changes that might reveal hidden conditions. The social aspects of uroscopy were quite different from modern medical practice. Wealthy patients, like Lady Margaret, rarely visited physicians in person instead. They sent servants with carefully collected samples and detailed descriptions of symptoms. This created a system where physicians developed reputations based entirely on their ability to diagnose conditions from urine samples alone, without ever meeting their patients face to face. Roger's reputation extends far beyond Canterbury. He consulted on cases from as far away as London and York, with noble families sending messengers carrying precious Matulas filled with samples from sick relatives. His diagnostic accuracy has earned him a place, and his consultation fees reflect his expertise. A single uroscopy examination costs more than most craftsmen earn in a month. The treatment recommendations that emerge from uroscopy examinations were typically comprehensive lifestyle modifications designed to rebalance the humors. Based on his examination of Lady Margaret's urine, Roger prepares a detailed set of instructions for her care. He recommends a diet emphasizing cool, moist foods to counteract the excess heat and dryness in her system, fresh fruits, certain vegetables, and diluted wine instead of the rich meats and strong wines that may have contributed to her condition. Roger also prescribes specific herbal remedies designed to cool and moisten Lady Margaret's overheated digestive system. He writes out formulas for tisanes made from herbs like violet leaves and rose petals, and he recommends regular doses of a preparation made from ground pearls mixed with rose water, an expensive treatment befitting Lady Margaret's social status. The timing of treatments was considered crucial in medieval medicine, and Roger provides Lady Margaret's servants with detailed instructions about when various remedies should be administered. Some medicines work best when taken during the waxing moon, others during the waning phase. Certain herbs should be consumed at sunrise, while others are most effective at sunset as evening approaches in Canterbury. Roger completes his examination of Lady Margaret's sample and begins composing his detailed report. Written in elegant Latin script on fine parchment, the document will serve as both diagnosis and treatment plan. He includes not only his conclusions about Lady Margaret's current condition, but also recommendations for preventing similar problems in the future. The report will be sealed with Roger's personal seal and entrusted to Lady Margaret's most reliable servant for the journey back to her manor house. Along with the written diagnosis, Roger sends several small vials containing precisely measured doses of the herbal remedies he's prescribed, each one labeled with detailed instructions for preparation and administration. Medieval Uroscopy represented one of the most sophisticated diagnostic systems of its time, requiring physicians to integrate observations of color, consistency, odor, and taste with complex theoretical frameworks about humoral balance and astronomical influences. While the underlying theory was incorrect by modern standards, the careful observational skills developed by practitioners like Roger laid important groundwork for later advances in medical diagnosis. The Matulas used in uroscopy were often works of art in themselves, with wealthy physicians commissioning elaborate vessels decorated with gold leaf and precious stones. Some collections of diagnostic glassware were passed down through generations of healers, each Matula carrying the accumulated wisdom of centuries of medical practice. As the last light fades from Roger's consulting room and the Matulas on his shelves catch and reflect the warm glow of candlelight, the medieval world of medical diagnosis settles into the gentle rhythms of evening. The careful observations, the scholarly consultations, the precise measurements, all part of humanity's endless quest to understand and heal the mysterious vessel of the human body. And as we leave this room, where liquid holds secrets and glass vessels capture the essence of health and disease, let your own body find its natural rhythms, feeling the peaceful flow of life through your system, carrying you gently toward the healing realm of dreams. Come with me now to the sun-drenched hills of southern Spain, where the year is 1467 and the golden light of late afternoon filters through the narrow windows of a workshop that bridges to worlds of healing. Here, in the city of Cordoba, Master Ibrahim ibn Yusuf practices the ancient art of cauterization, the deliberate burning of flesh to heal disease, in a tradition that stretches back through Islamic medical texts to the physicians of ancient Greece. Ibrahim's workshop occupies the ground floor of a modest house built around a peaceful courtyard where orange trees grow in large ceramic pots. The scent of orange blossoms mingles with the more clinical aromas of his trade, the metallic smell of heated iron, the sharp temps of wine used for cleaning wounds, and the earthy fragrance of medicinal herbs that hang in neat bundles from the whitewashed walls. The room itself is a study in medieval precision and beauty. Sunlight streams through windows fitted with intricate geometric screens that cast patterns of light and shadow across the tiled floor. Along one wall, a series of alcoves holds Ibrahim's collection of cauterizing instruments, dozens of iron tools, each designed for specific types of burns and different areas of the body. The metal gleams like liquid silver in the afternoon light, each instrument polished to mirror brightness and arranged with the care of a master craftsman displaying his finest work. Today's patient is Don Carlos, a wealthy merchant who has traveled from Seville seeking Ibrahim's specialized treatment for a condition that has plagued him for months. Carlos suffers from what medieval physicians call sciatica, a shooting pain that runs from his lower back down his left leg, making it difficult for him to walk or even sleep comfortably. In the medieval understanding of disease, this pain results from corrupt humors that have settled in the affected area, and only the purifying fire of cauterization can burn away the diseased material and restore healthy balance. Ibrahim's approach to cauterization combines Islamic medical scholarship with practical techniques refined over decades of practice. His library contains copies of works by Al-Razi and Ibn Sina scholars, whose understanding of cauterization far exceeded anything available in contemporary European texts. These books, written in elegant Arabic script and illuminated with detailed anatomical diagrams, describe precise locations for burns and specific techniques for different types of conditions. The preparation for cauterization is as important as the procedure itself. Ibrahim begins by examining Carlos carefully, pressing along the path of the pain to determine exactly where the corrupt humors have gathered. Medieval Islamic medicine emphasized the importance of precise diagnosis. Burning the wrong location could cause more harm than good, while accurate placement of the cautery could provide immediate and permanent relief. Carlos lies on a cushioned platform, covered with clean linen sheets that have been soaked in rosewater and dried in the sun. The preparation is both practical and ceremonial. The rosewater provides antiseptic properties that help prevent infection, while its pleasant scent creates a calming atmosphere that helps patients relax during the frightening procedure. Ibrahim's collection of cauterizing instruments is truly impressive, representing centuries of refinement in Islamic surgical practice. There are large, flat-tipped irons for treating broad areas of diseased flesh, and tiny, needle-like points for precise work on small lesions. Some instruments are shaped like buttons or coins for creating circular burns, while others have curved or angled tips for reaching difficult areas of the body. The centerpiece of Ibrahim's collection is a set of instruments known as firing irons, long-handled, tools with decorative brass fittings that make them look almost like royal scepters. These instruments were designed not just for functionality, but also to impress patients with the dignity and importance of the procedure they were about to undergo. The psychological aspect of medical treatment was well understood in medieval Islamic medicine, and beautiful instruments helped reinforce patients' confidence in their physician's abilities. For Carlos's treatment, Ibrahim selects a medium-sized iron with a circular tip about the size of a copper coin. The instrument has been blessed according to Islamic custom and cleaned with wine and aromatic oils. Ibrahim heats it in a specially designed brazier that burns charcoal mixed with aromatic woods. The sweet smoke not only purifies the instrument, but also creates a pleasant atmosphere that helps mask the more disturbing aspects of the procedure. The actual cauterization requires enormous skill and precision. Ibrahim must heat the iron to exactly the right temperature, hot enough to burn through the skin quickly and cleanly, but not so hot that it causes excessive damage to the surrounding tissue. He tests the temperature by holding the iron near his own face, feeling the heat radiating from the metal. Years of experience have taught him to judge the perfect moment. When the iron is ready for use, the sound of the cautery touching flesh is distinctive, a sharp hissing that lasts only a moment but seems to fill the entire room. The smell is more complex, burnt flesh mixed with the aromatic oils used to prepare the instrument and the lingering fragrance of the rose water-soaked linens. Carlos grips the edges of the platform and breathes deeply, following Ibrahim's instructions to remain as still as possible during the brief but intense procedure. Medieval Islamic physicians recognized that cauterization was extremely painful, and they developed various methods to help patients cope with the discomfort. Some used preparations of opium or other pain-relieving herbs, while others employed distraction techniques, asking patients to recite prayers or poetry during the procedure. Ibrahim combines both approaches, giving Carlos a preparation of wine mixed with ground pearls and aromatic herbs, while encouraging him to recite verses from the Quran. The burns that Ibrahim creates are small but strategically placed along the path of Carlos's pain. Each cautery point is about the size of a pea and penetrates just deep enough to destroy the corrupted tissue where the evil humors have gathered. The precision required is extraordinary, too shallow, and the treatment will be ineffective. Too deep and permanent damage might result. As each burn is completed, Ibrahim immediately applies a specially prepared ointment made from honey, crushed pearls, and pulverized gold leaf. Medieval Islamic physicians believed that precious metals and stones had healing properties that could speed recovery and prevent complications. The ointment not only soothes the burned skin, but also provides a barrier against infection. While the wounds heal, the immediate effect of cauterization often surprises modern readers. Carlos reports that his pain begins to diminish almost immediately after the procedure is completed. Medieval physicians explained this rapid improvement as evidence that the corrupt humors had been successfully burned away. Though we now understand that the intense stimulation of cauterization might interrupt pain signals in ways that provide temporary or sometimes permanent relief. Ibrahim's workshop serves patients from across southern Spain and North Africa. Drawn by his reputation for successful cauterization treatments, his waiting room, a covered arcade that opens onto the orange-scented courtyard, often hosts a diverse group of patients: Christian merchants, Islamic scholars, Jewish physicians seeking to learn his techniques, and occasionally even members of the royal court who travel incognito to avoid attention. The social dynamics of cauterization were complex in medieval Spain, where Christian, Islamic, and Jewish medical traditions coexisted and influenced each other. Ibrahim's practice benefits from this cultural mixing. He uses Islamic theoretical frameworks combined with techniques learned from Jewish colleagues and herbal preparations recommended by Christian monks. The result is a synthesis of medical knowledge that represents the best of medieval healing arts. Different types of cauterization were prescribed for different conditions. Headaches might be treated with tiny burns on the temples or behind the ears. Digestive problems could require cauterization of specific points on the abdomen. Mental illness sometimes called for burns on the crown of the head, while joint pain was addressed by burning the skin directly over the affected area. The instruments themselves varied dramatically in size and complexity. Simple cauterization might use a basic iron rod heated in a fire, while complex procedures required specialized tools with multiple tips or adjustable heating chambers. Wealthy practitioners like Ibrahim owned instruments made from precious metals and decorated with jewels, both for their beauty and because medieval physicians believed that noble materials enhanced the healing properties of their treatments. Recovery from cauterization followed a careful protocol developed over centuries of Islamic medical practice. Ibrahim provides Carlos with detailed instructions for caring for his burns, including how often to change the dressings, what signs might indicate infection, and when to return for follow-up examinations. The burns will leave permanent scars, round marks that serve as lifetime reminders of the treatment. and proof of Ibrahim's skill. The economic aspects of cauterization were significant in medieval society. The procedure was expensive enough that it was typically reserved for wealthy patients or those with serious conditions that had failed to respond to less dramatic treatments. However, the dramatic nature of cauterization and its often impressive results made it a highly valued service that could establish a physician's reputation and ensure a steady stream of affluent patients. Some practitioners specialized in particular types of cauterization. Military surgeons developed techniques for treating battlefield injuries, while court physicians perfected methods for cosmetic applications, removing unwanted growths or scars that might affect a noble's appearance. Monastery infirmaries often maintained cauterization equipment for treating pilgrims who arrived with chronic conditions that had resisted other forms of treatment. As the sun sets over Cordoba and the call to evening prayer echoes from the city's minarets, Ibrahim completes Carlos's treatment and begins the process of cleaning and storing his instruments. Each iron is carefully cleaned with wine and oil, then wrapped in silk cloth to prevent corrosion. The brazier is allowed to burn down to glowing embers that will keep the workshop warm through the cool evening hours. The courtyard outside Ibrahim's workshop gradually fills with the sounds of evening, the splash of the fountain, the rustle of orange leaves in the evening breeze, and the distant music of a lute played somewhere in the maze of narrow streets. Carlos rests comfortably on his cushioned platform, the immediate pain of cauterization already fading as the healing ointments begin their work. Medieval cauterization represents one of the most dramatic examples of the medieval medical principle that healing sometimes requires the deliberate infliction of controlled damage. The practice required enormous courage from both physicians and patients, and its success depended on a complex understanding of anatomy, pathology, and the healing process that was remarkably sophisticated for its time. And as we leave this workshop, where fire was used to heal, where precision and courage combined to bring relief from pain, let the warmth of that ancient healing fire kindle a gentle flame of peace in your own body, burning away the tensions of the day and carrying you softly toward the restorative embrace of sleep. Follow me now to the ancient city of Venice, where the morning mist rises from the Grand Canal like ghostly fingers, and the year is 1498. In a narrow palazzo tucked between the workshops of glassblowers and silk merchants, Master Giovanni Bellicorti practices, perhaps, the most complex and mysterious of all medieval medical arts, the preparation of Theriac, a legendary cure-all that was said to contain the power to neutralize any poison and heal virtually any disease. Giovanni's laboratory occupies 3 floors of the palazzo, connected by a spiral staircase, worn smooth by centuries of scholarly feet. The ground floor houses his collection of raw materials, hundreds of ceramic jars, wooden boxes, and glass bottles containing ingredients gathered from the farthest corners of the known world. The air here is thick with competing fragrances: cinnamon bark from Ceylon, frankincense from Arabia, dried roses from Damascus, and strange scents that hint mysteries from lands beyond the edge of medieval maps. Theriac's sometimes called Venice treacle because of the city's dominance in its production was considered the most powerful Medicine in medieval pharmacopoeia. The recipe, traced back to ancient Rome and refined over centuries, called for dozens of exotic ingredients combined in precise proportions according to astrological calculations and seasonal timing. A single batch of Theriac could take months to prepare and cost more than a craftsman's annual wages. This morning, Giovanni begins the preparation of a new batch of Theriac commissioned by the court of Milan. The Duke himself suffers from a mysterious wasting disease that has resisted all conventional treatments, and his physicians have prescribed Theriac as their last hope. The pressure on Giovanni is enormous. Not only must he create a medicine of exceptional quality, but the reputation of Venetian Theriac making rests on his ability to produce a product worthy of royalty. The formula Giovanni follows contains 64 different ingredients, each one specified with mathematical precision. The base of the preparation is honey, not ordinary honey, but a special variety collected from bees that feed exclusively on thyme growing on the Greek island of Hymettus. This honey, with its distinctive golden color and complex floral notes, provides both sweetness and preservation properties that will keep the finished Theriac potent for decades. Giovanni's ingredients come from an international network of merchants and collectors who specialize in medical materials. There are dried vipers from the mountains of Macedonia, just any vipers, but specifically those caught during the spring when their venom is most potent. The preparation of these serpents alone is a process that takes weeks, involving careful cleaning, drying, and grinding that must be performed according to ancient specifications from the spice markets of Constantinople come saffron threads, each one hand-picked and more valuable by weight than gold. The saffron not only contributes to distinctive color and flavor, but also provides what medieval physicians believed were powerful warming properties that could counteract the cooling effects of poisons. Giovanni examines each thread under a magnifying glass, rejecting any that shows signs of damage or adulteration. The laboratory's second floor is devoted to preparation and mixing, with work surfaces made from marble slabs that stay cool even during Venice's sultry summers. Here, Giovanni employs a team of assistants who have trained for years to learn the precise techniques required for Theriac preparation. Each assistant specializes in particular aspects of the work. One focuses on grinding dried herbs to exactly the right consistency. Another manages the complex timing required for different stages of the mixing process. Grinding of ingredients is performed using mortar and pestles made from different materials depending on the substance being processed. Soft herbs require marble pestles that won't generate excessive heat, while harder materials, like dried roots, need bronze implements that can apply greater pressure. Some ingredients must be ground to a powder so fine that it feels like silk between the fingers, while others are left deliberately coarse to provide texture and aid in the slow release of their active properties. Medieval Theriac preparation followed elaborate seasonal and astrological timing that reflected the period's integration of medicine and cosmology. Giovanni consults detailed charts that specify when each ingredient should be added to the mixture based on the phases of the moon, the position of planets, and the changing seasons. Some components can only be incorporated during the spring when life forces are ascending, while others require the introspective energy of autumn for proper integration. The mixing process itself resembles a complex dance choreographed over centuries of tradition. Giovanni begins by warming the precious Hymettus honey in a copper cauldron suspended over a carefully controlled fire. The honey must reach a specific temperature hot enough to dissolve the various powdered ingredients, but not so hot that it destroys their delicate therapeutic properties. He tests the temperature by dropping a single grain of the mixture into the honey and observing how quickly it dissolves. As the honey reaches the perfect temperature, Giovanni begins adding ingredients in a sequence that has been refined through generations of Theriac masters. First come the aromatic spices cinnamon, cardamom, and long pepper, which release their essential oils into the warm honey and create the foundation of flavor that will characterize the finished product. The laboratory fills with clouds of fragrant steam that make breathing feel like inhaling pure luxury. Next are added the precious stones and metals that medieval medicine believed contributed powerful healing properties. Giovanni incorporates ground pearls, pulverized emeralds, and flakes of pure gold, each one contributing not only therapeutic value but also demonstrating the extraordinary expense and care invested in the preparation. The emeralds, in particular, are believed to have special properties against poison, a crucial element in Theriac's reputation as a universal antidote. The dried viper flesh, prepared according to ancient specifications, is added at the mixture's midpoint when the other ingredients have achieved perfect integration. Medieval physicians believed that vipers, because they could survive their own venom, contained natural antidotes that could neutralize any poison. The incorporation of viper flesh transforms Theriac from a mere medicine into something approaching the miraculous, a preparation that harnesses the very essence of toxicity to create healing. Follow me now to the ancient city of Venice, where the morning mist rises from the Grand Canal like ghostly fingers, and the year is 1498. In a narrow palazzo tucked between the workshops of glassblowers and silk merchants, Master Giovanni Bellicorti practices, perhaps, the most complex and mysterious of all medieval medical arts, the preparation of Theriac, a legendary cure-all that was said to contain the power to neutralize any poison and heal virtually any disease. Giovanni's laboratory occupies 3 floors of the palazzo, connected by a spiral staircase, worn smooth by centuries of scholarly feet. The ground floor houses his collection of raw materials, hundreds of ceramic jars, wooden boxes, and glass bottles containing ingredients gathered from the farthest corners of the known world. The air here is thick with competing fragrances: cinnamon bark from Ceylon, frankincense from Arabia, dried roses from Damascus, and strange scents that hint mysteries from lands beyond the edge of medieval maps. Theriac's sometimes called Venice treacle because of the city's dominance in its production was considered the most powerful medicine in medieval pharmacopoeia. The recipe, traced back to ancient Rome and refined over centuries, called for dozens of exotic ingredients combined in precise proportions according to astrological calculations and seasonal timing. A single batch of Theriac could take months to prepare and cost more than a craftsman's annual wages. This morning, Giovanni begins the preparation of a new batch of Theriac commissioned by the court of Milan. The Duke himself suffers from a mysterious wasting disease that has resisted all conventional treatments, and his physicians have prescribed Theriac as their last hope. The pressure on Giovanni is enormous. Not only must he create a medicine of exceptional quality, but the reputation of Venetian Theriac making rests on his ability to produce a product worthy of royalty. The formula Giovanni follows contains 64 different ingredients, each one specified with mathematical precision. The base of the preparation is honey, not ordinary honey, but a special variety collected from bees that feed exclusively on thyme growing on the Greek island of Hymettus. This honey, with its distinctive golden color and complex floral notes, provides both sweetness and preservation properties that will keep the finished Theriac potent for decades. Giovanni's ingredients come from an international network of merchants and collectors who specialize in medical materials. There are dried vipers from the mountains of Macedonia, just any vipers, but specifically those caught during the spring when their venom is most potent. The preparation of these serpents alone is a process that takes weeks, involving careful cleaning, drying, and grinding that must be performed according to ancient specifications from the spice markets of Constantinople come saffron threads, each one hand-picked and more valuable by weight than gold. The saffron not only contributes to distinctive color and flavor, but also provides what medieval physicians believed were powerful warming properties that could counteract the cooling effects of poisons. Giovanni examines each thread under a magnifying glass, rejecting any that shows signs of damage or adulteration. The laboratory's second floor is devoted to preparation and mixing, with work surfaces made from marble slabs that stay cool even during Venice's sultry summers. Here, Giovanni employs a team of assistants who have trained for years to learn the precise techniques required for Theriac preparation. Each assistant specializes in particular aspects of the work. One focuses on grinding dried herbs to exactly the right consistency. Another manages the complex timing required for different stages of the mixing process. Grinding of ingredients is performed using mortar and pestles made from different materials depending on the substance being processed. Soft herbs require marble pestles that won't generate excessive heat, while harder materials, like dried roots, need bronze implements that can apply greater pressure. Some ingredients must be ground to a powder so fine that it feels like silk between the fingers, while others are left deliberately coarse to provide texture and aid in the slow release of their active properties. Medieval Theriac preparation followed elaborate seasonal and astrological timing that reflected the period's integration of medicine and cosmology. Giovanni consults detailed charts that specify when each ingredient should be added to the mixture based on the phases of the moon, the position of planets, and the changing seasons. Some components can only be incorporated during the spring when life forces are ascending, while others require the introspective energy of autumn. 4. Proper integration. The mixing process itself resembles a complex dance choreographed over centuries of tradition. Giovanni begins by warming the precious Hymettus honey in a copper cauldron suspended over a carefully controlled fire. The honey must reach a specific temperature hot enough to dissolve the various powdered ingredients, but not so hot that it destroys their delicate therapeutic properties. He tests the temperature by dropping a single grain of the mixture into the honey and observing how quickly it dissolves. As the honey reaches the perfect temperature, Giovanni begins adding ingredients in a sequence that has been refined through generations of Theriac masters. First come the aromatic spices cinnamon, cardamom, and long pepper, which release their essential oils into the warm honey and create the foundation of flavor that will characterize the finished product. The laboratory fills with clouds of fragrant steam that make breathing feel like inhaling pure luxury. Next are added the precious stones and metals that medieval medicine believed contributed powerful healing properties. Giovanni incorporates ground pearls, pulverized emeralds, and flakes of pure gold, each one contributing not only therapeutic value but also demonstrating the extraordinary expense and care invested in the preparation. The emeralds, in particular, are believed to have special properties against poison, a crucial element in Theriac's reputation as a universal antidote. The dried viper flesh, prepared according to ancient specifications, is added at the mixture's midpoint when the other ingredients have achieved perfect integration. Medieval physicians believed that vipers, because they could survive their own venom, contained natural antidotes that could neutralize any poison. The incorporation of viper flesh transforms Theriac from a mere medicine into something approaching the miraculous, a preparation that harnesses the very essence of toxicity to create healing. Our final journey takes us to the misty hills of Ireland, where the year is 1501, and Brother Coleman tends to the most troubled souls in the Abbey of Glendalough. Here, among the ancient round towers and crumbling stone churches that dot the landscape like sleeping giants, medieval medicine confronts its most mysterious challenge: the healing of ailments believed to be caused not by humoral imbalances or corrupt substances, but by the direct intervention of evil spirits in human affairs. The abbey sits in a valley surrounded by mountains that seem to touch the low-hanging clouds, their peaks disappearing into mists that never fully clear. To dark lakes reflect the gray sky like mirrors, and between them stands the collection of stone buildings that have served as a center of learning and healing for over 500 years. The sound of water is everywhere, streams trickling down the mountainsides, rain drumming on slate roofs, and the gentle lapping of lake water against rocky shores. Brother Coleman's cell is austere by the standards we've seen in other medieval medical settings, but it possesses a spiritual richness that makes the simple room feel sacred. The walls are whitewashed stone, hung with wooden crosses and illuminated manuscripts depicting scenes from the lives of healing saints. A small window faces east toward the sunrise, and beneath it stands a simple wooden table that serves as both desk and altar. This morning brings a case that will test all of Coleman's skills as both healer and spiritual counselor. Young Shaban, the daughter of a local chieftain, has been brought to the abbey, suffering from what her family describes as demonic possession. For weeks, she has experienced fits during which she speaks in strange voices, demonstrates knowledge she could not possibly possess, and displays physical strength far beyond what seems natural for a young woman of her slight build. medieval understanding of mental illness was complex and nuanced, recognizing that some conditions resulted from physical causes while others had spiritual origins. Brother Coleman has studied both the medical texts that describe humoral treatments for melancholy and madness, and the theological works that provide guidance for distinguishing between natural illness and supernatural affliction. His training combines the healing traditions of Celtic Christianity with the more recent scholarship of continental monasteries. Shaban lies on a simple cot in the abbey's infirmary, a stone room warmed by a peat fire that fills the air with its distinctive earthy scent. She appears to be sleeping peacefully, but Brother Coleman observes the subtle signs that suggest her condition is more complex than simple rest. Her breathing is irregular, sometimes shallow and rapid, other times deep and slow, as if she were in the deepest sleep. Her hands occasionally clench and unclench, and her eyes move beneath closed lids as if she were experiencing vivid dreams. The process of spiritual diagnosis requires different skills than the medical examination techniques we've observed in earlier chapters. Brother Coleman begins not by examining Shaban's body, but by interviewing her family and the priests who brought her to the abbey. He needs to understand not just her symptoms, but the circumstances that preceded their onset. Any exposure to cursed objects or locations, and her spiritual condition before the troubles began. Shaban's father, Fergus, describes the onset of his daughter's condition with the detailed observation of a man desperate to understand what has befallen his child. 3 weeks ago, while gathering herbs in an ancient oak grove sacred to the old gods, Shaban discovered a strange stone carved with symbols that predated Christian influence in Ireland. That night she began experiencing dreams filled with voices speaking in languages she didn't recognize, and within days the waking fits began. Medieval Irish Christianity maintained a complex relationship with the pre-Christian traditions that still lingered in remote areas. Many monks acknowledged that ancient sacred sites retained spiritual power that could be either beneficial or harmful depending on how it was approached. Brother Coleman recognizes the description of Shaban's discovery as potentially significant. Carved stones from the old religion were believed capable of channeling spiritual forces that Christian souls were not prepared to handle. The examination of Shaban herself requires extraordinary sensitivity and spiritual preparation. Brother Coleman spends the hour before dawn in prayer and fasting, purifying himself for the encounter with whatever forces might be influencing the young woman. He dons a special robe blessed by the abbey's relics, and carries a wooden cross carved from wood taken from the original monastery founded by Saint Kevin centuries earlier. When Shaban awakens, she initially appears completely normal, a frightened young woman seeking comfort in a strange place. But as Brother Coleman begins his questioning, subtle changes become apparent. Her voice occasionally takes on different tones and accents, as if other personalities were speaking through her. She demonstrates knowledge of Latin prayers that she claims never to have learned, and at one point she accurately describes the interior of churches in distant parts of Ireland that she has never visited. Medieval spiritual healing employed a range of techniques designed to strengthen the patient's soul while weakening the influence of evil spirits. Brother Coleman begins with the gentlest approaches, prayers of protection, the sprinkling of holy water blessed during the Easter Vigil, and the placement of sacred relics near Shaban's bed. The abbey possesses a fragment of St. Brigid's cloak and a bell said to have belonged to St. Patrick, both objects believed to radiate protective power. The use of sacred objects in medieval healing was both practical and symbolic. The relics themselves were believed to channel divine power that could drive away evil influences. But their presence also provided psychological comfort to patients and their families. Brother Coleman explains to Shaban's parents that the healing process may take time, requiring not just spiritual intervention, but also the patient's own commitment to prayer and penance. The Abbey's library contains several texts dealing with spiritual healing and exorcism, including detailed accounts of similar cases resolved by previous generations of monks. Brother Coleman consults these works by candlelight, searching for precedents that might guide his treatment of Shaban's condition. One manuscript, written in beautifully illuminated script, describes a case remarkably similar to Shaban's, young woman who encountered pre-Christian spiritual forces and required months of careful treatment to restore her natural spiritual balance. Medieval exorcism was a gradual process that emphasized healing rather than dramatic confrontation. Unlike the violent spiritual battles depicted in popular imagination, actual medieval practice focused on strengthening the patient's connection to divine grace, while slowly weakening whatever evil influences might be at work. Brother Coleman begins each day's treatment with Mass celebrated specifically for Shaban's healing, using special prayers that invoke the protection of saints. Known for their power over demonic forces, the physical aspects of spiritual healing were as important as the prayers and rituals. Brother Coleman prescribes a diet designed to purify Shaban's body and strengthen her natural spiritual defenses. She receives bread blessed during Mass, water from the Abbey's holy well, and herbal preparations made from plants grown in the monastery garden and blessed by the Abbey's relics. The community aspect of medieval spiritual healing provided crucial support for both patients and their families. Other monks join Brother Coleman in maintaining continuous prayer vigils for Shaban's recovery, while the Abbey's guests, pilgrims, and visitors seeking their own healing include her in their own devotions. This network of spiritual support creates an atmosphere of hope and divine presence that medieval practitioners believed was essential for successful treatment. As days pass, subtle changes become apparent in Shaban's condition. The fits occur less frequently and with less intensity. The strange voices that spoke through her gradually fade, replaced by her own natural speech patterns. Most importantly, she begins to participate actively in her own healing, joining the monks in their prayers and expressing genuine remorse for her inadvertent contact with forces beyond Christian understanding. Brother Coleman's treatment protocol includes elements that might surprise modern readers with their psychological sophistication. He encourages Shaban to describe her experiences in detail, helping her process the frightening symptoms and understand them within a Christian framework. He also works with her family to identify any ongoing sources of spiritual danger in their home environment and provides specific guidance for maintaining spiritual protection after her return. Abbey's infirmary becomes a place of pilgrimage as word spreads of Shaban's treatment. Other families bring loved ones suffering from similar conditions, creating a community of healing that supports everyone involved in the process. The shared experience of spiritual struggle and recovery creates bonds that will last for generations, as families maintain connections forged during their time at Glendalough. Medieval understanding of spiritual healing recognized that some conditions required ongoing management rather than immediate cure. Brother Coleman provides Siobhan and her family with detailed instructions for maintaining her spiritual health after leaving the abbey. These include regular participation in Mass, specific prayers to be said at sunrise and sunset, and the use of blessed objects for protection against future spiritual dangers. The economic aspects of spiritual healing were different from other medieval medical practices. While wealthy families made generous donations to monasteries that provided spiritual healing, the monks also treated poor patients without charge, seeing their healing ministry as a religious obligation rather than a commercial enterprise. This created a system where spiritual healing was available to all social classes, though the quality of accommodation and additional services varied dramatically depending on the patient's ability to pay. The success of Siobhan's treatment brings honor to the abbey and reinforces Brother Coleman's reputation as a skilled spiritual healer. Word of the case spreads throughout Ireland and beyond, bringing requests for consultation from monasteries facing similar challenges. The detailed notes that Brother Coleman keeps of Siobhan's treatment will serve as a reference for future cases and contribute to the growing body of knowledge about spiritual healing methods. As autumn settles over the valley of Glendalough and the first frost touches the mountain peaks, Siobhan prepares to return home. The young woman who arrived at the abbey tormented by mysterious forces now appears calm and spiritually centered. Her family expresses profound gratitude to Brother Coleman and the monastic community, promising annual donations to support the abbey's healing ministry. The celebration of Siobhan's recovery takes the form of a special Mass attended by the entire abbey community and the many visitors who have witnessed her transformation. The service includes prayers of thanksgiving and specific intercessions for others suffering from similar affliction. Brother Coleman delivers a sermon that places Siobhan's healing within the broader context of God's mercy and the ongoing battle between good and evil that defines human existence. Medieval spiritual healing represented perhaps the most complex and sophisticated approach to mental health available during the period. While the underlying theological framework may seem strange to modern readers, the emphasis on community support, gradual treatment, and the integration of physical and spiritual approaches created a healing environment that was remarkably effective for many conditions that we would now classify as psychological disorders. The manuscripts that Brother Coleman produces documenting Siobhan's case will join the Abbey's collection of healing records, contributing to a body of knowledge that will influence spiritual healing practices for centuries to come. His careful observations of symptoms, detailed treatment protocols, and honest assessment of outcomes demonstrate the same scholarly rigor that characterizes the best medieval medical writing. As evening mist rises from the dark lakes and the abbey bells ring Compline across the valley, Brother Coleman concludes his notes on Siobhan's case. The young woman sleeps peacefully in the infirmary, no longer tormented by the mysterious forces that brought her to Glendalough weeks ago. Tomorrow she will begin her journey home, carrying with her not only her restored health, but also a deeper understanding of the spiritual dimensions of human existence. The practice of spiritual healing at medieval monasteries like Glendalough represented a unique synthesis of medical knowledge, theological understanding, and pastoral care that addressed the whole person rather than just physical symptoms. While the specific beliefs and practices may seem foreign to modern sensibilities, the underlying commitment to healing through community support and spiritual growth continues to influence approaches to mental health and spiritual counseling to this day. And as we leave this misty valley, where ancient stones hold memories of both pagan and Christian healing, where troubled souls found peace through the patient ministrations of dedicated monks, let your own spirit find its natural peace, feeling the gentle presence of all those throughout history who have sought and found healing, their peaceful rest becoming your own as you drift into the sacred realm of dreams. May these memories of medieval healing guide you into peaceful dreams, where the wisdom of ages past mingles with the promise of rest and renewal. The Barber-Surgeons and their cupping glasses, the brave monks drilling holes to release trapped humors, the learned physicians reading secrets in glass vessels, the masters of fire and their purifying flames, the makers of miraculous theory, and the spiritual healers tending troubled souls, all of them part of humanity's endless, loving effort to ease suffering and restore health. If you drifted off somewhere along our journey through these ancient practices, let me know below where sleep first found you. Was it in Guillaume's candlelit cottage, or perhaps in the mountain monastery where Brother Benedict worked with his trepan? Maybe you found rest in Master Roger's consultation room with its rainbow-casting matulas, or in Ibrahim's sun-drenched workshop filled with the scent of orange blossoms. Sweet dreams, friends. May these whispered stories of healing carry you gently through the night, and may you wake refreshed and renewed, carrying with you the quiet knowledge that throughout all of human history, caring hands have worked to heal, gentle voices have offered comfort, and hope has persevered through even the darkest hours. Until we meet again in these quiet corridors of history, sleep well.